It's a joy to be with you on this Wednesday, and I trust things are going well. God is so good, and we are rejoicing in his goodness. I've gone once to Jeremiah chapter 29 over this last year. This is a great passage that tells us that God is working. This is the great prophecy of the 70 years of captivity by Jeremiah that would then be done, and then they would return back to the land. And he promises that it is going to happen if you will seek me and find me when you search for me with all of your heart. Verse 13 of chapter 29. And that is such an encouragement to know if we'll seek the Lord, he will do what he has promised. But he waits for someone to pray and to really believe his word so that it can happen. Daniel took that seriously. In fact, in his prayer, he refers to Jeremiah, and this is why he was praying that God would indeed forgive them of their sins and their rebellion. And he prays for that great deliverance, and it happens. It's a wonderful thing. But in the beginning of that prophecy here, starting in verse 10 of chapter 29, we read in verse 11, "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end." Jeremiah was living in a very troubled time. Daniel, of course, was living in the same troubled time, and he was going to be further down the road when he would pray his prayer, and he was troubled that God would be honored and that they would indeed go back to Jerusalem. But we have this from the Lord, that the thoughts of the Lord toward us are those of peace. He is working on our behalf. He lets us go through trials. There's a major conflict going on. And many times as we get into the work of the Lord, we're seeing that and maybe having some of the effects of it. But he's going to bring us to an expected end. He's going to accomplish his purpose if we are trusting him, if we are seeking him. He's going to do what he said he was going to do. That's really encouraging. People oftentimes, believers, have a wrong concept of God's attitude toward them in particular. God's not like angry authorities that you've had in the past. God is not like people in this world. Our God is a long-suffering, merciful God that keeps his word. He's just, he's right, and his love is perfect. And what he says, he will do. And so he's thinking thoughts of peace about you and about the work of God. He is endeavoring to bring great and glorious results to the work of his people if they will but seek him. And so God's on your side, basically. God cares about you. He's working. He loves you. And you can just be fully confident that you can rest in him as a good father. And he's going to come through. He's going to answer your prayers. He's going to draw nigh to you. He's going to do everything he said. But we've got to listen to him. We've got to yield to him. We've got to keep our heart right. We've got to be willing to go through the trials. We've got to be willing to let him deal with us. But I promise you, every thought is a good thought toward us. He is working toward a glorious end in our life. And when we get a hold of that, it brings such peace and such assurance. May God help us really be encouraged to know he's on our side.